welcome to Bipolar Pharmacy. My name is Dawit and here I am with lovely Kara Kim. We both
Hello.
hello. Yes, we've both had bipolar disorder for quite some time now, right? Kara, how long have you had bipolar disorder for again?
Well, 27 years.
7 years, yes. And I've had bipolar disorder for 15 years. And we're here to just share about our lives regarding bipolar disorder and different things related to that. So today's topic would be bipolar talent. So how our bipolar disorder has affected our talent so far in our lives. So
Mhm.
we're going to be asking a number of questions, and both of us are going to respond to those questions. So first off, the first question would be, what, Kara, what were your talents before you had bipolar disorder?
Well, I guess, like we talked about it in the first episode, I was always kind of outgoing and pretty talkative with the people that I feel comfortable with. So I guess my talent would be I was pretty articulate, I was talkative and I liked communicating with people and I was pretty good at making a speech. So I had pretty good talent in that sense. But even before or after, I guess, that was my main focus because, as you know, your job is being a life coach. And also my job is, a life coach and a motivational speaker. So I guess that could kind of affected, the way I was and the way I am now. But there might be a little bit more of, different things after being diagnosed. Yeah, maybe the same. I guess it goes the same for you too, right? Mm.
Yeah, I would say so. Um, well, in my case, I would say my talents before had to do with maybe certain sports, and
Hmm.
to a certain extent, I was athletically gifted, so I would excel in sports like running, and
Hmm.
also I did some martial arts. I did some taekwondo. Before that, when I
Mm.
was in middle school, I did football and basketball.
Mm.
And yeah, in terms of public speaking, I was somewhat comfortable.
Hmm.
And also, I did a lot of singing, which I
Mm.
started in choir, which was in the seventh grade, I believe. Since seventh grade, I did
Mm.
choir. I was in a
Pretty
rock
early.
band,
Mm.
and I also started writing at an early age. And I started writing my
Mm.
first motivational book for teenagers when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
my next question would actually be, um, so what were your talents like after having bipolar disorder?
Because I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 25 years old, right? So it was after finishing university. I was kind of already an adult. So I would say, I don't think that my talent would really have changed or much of different before and after. But I'd say because I was diagnosed with it, I found more about how people are after, being diagnosed with the bipolar disorder and how they change kind of in a way. So I talked to my, psychiatrist, my doctor, about how people would react different if they are on manic or on depression. But like and we already talked about in our first episode, I really don't have a depression episode. So when I was kind of manic state, I guess I was more active. And I was pretty, kind of, like you mentioned, you had talent about writing. So I had kind of, doing a lot of written stuff on my blog too. So if I was on the manic state, I guess I was more, more talkative and more outgoing. But after being on a medication and, more control of myself, I would say, I don't think my talent would have really changed, but I would say I would more focused and I would know that what my strong point would be. So I was focusing more on that and I tried to be more, more objective in a way. rather than being subjective. So I try to kind of organize my thoughts better. And then I was trying to focusing more how I spoke to people and how I make a speech as a life coach and a motivational speaker. Yeah. So for me, I guess that wasn't much different like your case, because you're a lot of talent in sports and being choir. So I guess you're more like a well-rounder than I was in that case. So yeah, for me, not much of a difference, but because of being a bipolar patient, made me try to focus more on what my talent would be. Before I was like kind of oh well, whatever I do, I just do it. But these days, and after being diagnosed, I was more trying to focus on my strong points rather than
Mm.
so I guess would be a little bit different, but not much different in that case. Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. How you're focused more, especially for your
Right.
strengths, once you become
Right.
bipolar. Well,
Yes.
if I were to share regarding this question, I would
Mm-hmm.
say I became a lot more compassionate because I had a
Mm.
wide range of emotions, some very hurtful, very traumatic
Right.
relationships. It could be relationships regarding my hospitalizations, or it
Mm-hmm.
could be experiences regarding my relationships. So
Right.
through that, having more compassion, I became a better listener. So that
Mm.
helps with like counseling and life coaching. And having being able to be more expressive through these wide range of emotions that I got from being like manic and also depressed.
Mm-hmm.
It helped me as an artist, like in terms of rapping as well. I could be much more
Yes.
expressive and think of more metaphors and go more
Mm.
deeply into my emotions. It also helped me as a writer as well. And also when I speak with more. I keep using the word emotions, but they are really important. I I
I think so.
I'm able to speak with a wider range of emotions, from you know the very the very sad and um the very sad emotions to the very joyful emotions. I could just express it a lot better
Right.
after having bipolar disorder, and that's what ultimately helped me become. I'd hate to say it myself, but it helped me become more talented in certain areas, especially
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
artistry. Yeah.
Right.
So,
More artistic. Yeah.
yeah. So are there any like bipolar people
Mm.
that are famous and that you kind of admire? Would you say?
I wouldn't say I really admire, but we hear about like Winston Churchill, like and actors and actresses like Brooke
Of course.
Shields. I don't know if you know, but she's a really old actress, so you might not even know. And there are many famous people that people mention, especially doctors. Like they say, oh, these people, these famous and really talented people there are, and you should kind of be more motivated because being a bipolar patient doesn't really be you shouldn't really be negative about all this, because there are people and there are actually many talented people that could be your model, right,
Right,
idol,
right.
whatever
Right.
things. So I would say people, when doctors told you about that, like even when they told me, I didn't really buy it in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
In my case, I didn't really buy that. Like, oh yeah, so what? Like, that doesn't mean like whatever, whatever. But after, time passes by, and after that I was in that position, in that shoes, and the way I am and the way how I felt about myself, and and the hearing and talking to other people who are bipolar, who are patients. And I say we do actually have many, talents in different fields. And like you have you are very, talented in writing and, even in speaking and also speech and also singing and in being more athletic and in sports. And whereas I am more into, making a speech and also persuading people and communicating with people. So, and other people have like, some people are very artistic, right? So I guess a lot of bipolar patients who are very pretty talented and they're really good at what they're doing. So I would say because there are certain people like that in the past and before, and like there are people who are being bipolar and also are talented, and we can look, I guess, take a look at their case and also compare our case, and we could say we could try to develop and also modify and also take the good things or good parts, and you could kind of take it as your role model, and I think that could be a good case. So you don't really have to say, oh, we have to look up to them all the time. I guess you can actually kind of mirror yourself, look at yourself, and and then also you don't really have to compare, but I guess we could take the good and bad, and you can kind of modify in their case. How about you, David? Like, did you have someone who kind of you compared or you look up to or took an example of?
I do agree that you have to take the good things, the positive things from those people and
Right,
apply those things to yourself. And because a lot
right,
of the times they also have a lot of negative things as well. Like for instance,
right.
a uh, very famous rapper named Kanye West. He does so many
Oh,
great
yeah,
things. He's a genius in terms of his
right.
creativity. He has like a fashion line. He's a businessman. He's in a lot of ways. It's just there's so many things you can model after like what he does, but also he has
Yeah.
some other aspects to his life that aren't so good to
Great.
model after. So
Right, right.
one of the people that comes to mind is a singer named In Jae Bum. Do you know him? He's one of the most famous singers
You're
in
the singer, right?
yes, he's one of
Mm.
the most famous singers in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
He had a pretty severe case of bipolar disorder, but when he sings, he just has so much soul, and he just the expression that he the expression of his emotions is just so deep, and he just touches the audience's heart in such a
Right.
human level. He
Oh.
just as an artist himself, he's so human, and he
Mm.
shows his vulnerability, which is also
Yeah.
very moving and touching, and therefore I really respect that, and I think it's when I think of that, I think it's also okay to show your vulnerabilities to other people.
Mm.
I don't necessarily think of it as a bad thing.
Right.
In
Oh, but
certain
I didn't know
cases,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
in certain cases, maybe it's good to like hide your vulnerability, but in terms of artistry, I think it's okay, and it's somewhat acceptable. Yeah.
True. But I didn't know that he had a bipolar disorder in
Oh yeah,
Japan.
he had a very is quite severe
I thought he was
bipolar
kind of
disorder.
sick. He had some kind of, I mean, I knew he had some kind of problems, but I didn't know it was bipolar.
Oh, it was
Wow. Okay.
bipolar disorder actually, which is
Ah,
quite
but
interesting.
his family is very talented too. Like his father is a, very famous anchor and,
Uh,
yeah, all that and like runs in his family. So I thought he was just very talented, but a little weird, but I didn't know he had bipolar disorder. So that's a surprise. Okay. Oh,
let's see.
I see. Hmm.
Um, but do you think bipolar can make you less talented?
I guess it depends on the person, but in my case, no, not really. How about you? Did it, give you a kind of negativity in a way?
Oh, definitely, because uh,
Mm.
I'm not sure if you experience. You said you didn't experience much depression, but when you're in your
No,
depressive
right.
phase, it just makes you feel like a zombie. It makes you feel like a vegetable.
Oh,
You can't do anything.
right.
Cognitive impairment. So you can't even, for me, I got really severe cognitive impairment to the point where I
Oh,
couldn't even
okay,
speak
okay,
properly. Therefore, I get all this social anxiety. Public speaking is
okay.
just way out there when I'm depressed. It feels like
Right.
stepping into the way far out there that is way beyond my capabilities. But
Ah, okay.
yeah, I get cognitive impairment. My like athletic ability too is very affected as well. And
Right.
um, the other thing that really makes it hard for me is like when I take medication, and you might have felt
Mm-hmm.
this as well. It just impairs you, and it makes you much. It makes you feel handicapped, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I know.
I'm sure you felt some of that when you took your medication, and that
Right.
obviously affects your talent, right?
Mm.
So would
But
you say so?
right, in my case, I know how you like, when I was in the hospital and I was in manic state and I go on a medication and it does affect a bit, but in my case, while I was in the hospital, like while I was in manic and and I was on the medication, and I felt I was more my talent would be, I guess, more prosperous in a way.
Oh, when
I
you were
don't,
in hospital.
yeah, it wasn't really down, like, hunting me down or anything.
Yeah,
There was no kind of negativity in my case.
yeah,
It was more positive effect. Even though I was in a hospital,
yeah,
I was doing, better like in sports. Even, when you're in like hospital, they do some kind of yoga or they do, Pilates or they do different kind of exercises, right?
yeah,
And I was better at it compared to the normal state.
yeah,
Yeah. So in my case, I guess it was a little different because luckily I don't really go through a depression, right? So
yeah,
it's depressive state. So that's okay for me. And where I was manic, I could actually explore my talent in a better way and in a more talented way in my case. So I
yeah.
guess that's a little different compared to other
Uh,
people.
I
Hmm.
totally understand what you're saying when you're talking about like physical abilities, and your creativity can like
Right.
expand, and you can become more creative when you're bipolar. But I
Right.
feel that it's kind of dangerous in a way, because when
Mm,
you have a lot of fluctuations when you're manic, and it's not
mm,
like lasting, and it's not stable, which is the
mm.
most important part. You might be able to increase in different capacities, but
Right.
at the same time, it's not controlled, and therefore I
Mm.
feel that's not the most effective kind of creativity, or the most effective kind of talent.
Well, yeah, you have a point. That is true. That could be it. But I guess in my case, whatever I write it down or I post it or on a blog or whatever, after being out of hospital,
Yeah,
I can kind of look back and I can go over what I've done. And in that case, I guess like you said, it could be unstable.
yeah,
That's possible. But in my case, after, being out of hospital and then when I go over it, I could kind of modify and
yeah,
then change. So for me, I guess it wasn't really a negative part in my case.
yeah,
But I guess, you have a point that other people, other bipolar patient could go through, different parts and different states, different phases.
yeah.
So in their cases, I guess you really kind of have to watch out and you have to be careful. And even in my case, I guess I have to be careful too, but I was just lucky, I guess, yeah,
So
compared to others.
would
Mm.
you say your bipolar talent is most comes out the most when you're at like a hypomanic or manic state?
Oh, I wouldn't say that was the best, or I can do,
Mm,
I would say I was more like you mentioned, I could be more creative and I can have more outcome. compared to the normal state. That could be possible. But like I said, I can take control of myself. And for me, whenever I was in a hospital, it just gives me, like, even though I was like in a manic state, it about 2 or 3 days being in a hospital, I guess like turns me into a kind of very a normal person. You know what I mean? Like, even though I was manic, so I had to go in a hospital. But as long as I go on a medication and I have a talk with doctors, and then I just, I don't really be very, like that, like stage, like very manic and I have to be really even being watched or people have to, go through all that. I guess, compared to other bipolar patients, I might be a little bit different because first, I don't really go through a depression. And second, after being after being hospitalized and go on a medication stronger medication, then I just become pretty normal. I guess that kind of gives me more chances of like, analyzing myself in that sense. Yeah.
Because I feel a lot of the case, one of the main messages I personally want to say to other bipolar people is that people kind of want to be in a hypomanic or manic state because they feel they're more talkative, they're more creative, they're more energetic, they can do more things, active. But I would say to have and to maintain the most talent as a bipolar person, you have to be in a stabilized state where you manage yourself.
Right.
And once you're able to be in a stable state, in a normalized state, you could still be plenty
Talented.
creative. You could be plenty active and things like that, because most of my creative projects were done when I was in a normal state. I didn't wait for
Right.
hypomania or mania or anything like that. So I think my personal message to bipolar people would be like, is to not crave for those moments when you're
No.
hypomanic or manic, but you just try to manage yourself as much as possible so that once not even at a depressed state, once you're at a normal state, you can just flourish in that state and maintain that for as long as possible.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Because like you just mentioned, that is the most important thing, right? Being on a medication and having control over your life and the way how you react to and how you manage your life as a normal person. That is the most important part. But because you asked me how I was and how I was different before or after, that's why I explained my case. But like I said, in my case, it was kind of different. It's much different than normal, bipolar patient. So in that sense, I have to consider myself lucky because I am different. But but most common, people who are bipolar, being bipolar patient, like you just mentioned, you have to be always try to have like normal state and you have to have control over your life as a person.
right.
Unless you're, you're really young or a teenager, that's a different case. But, being an adult and, you have to have control over your life by taking medication and also trying to, focus and trying to know who you are and what you're good at.
Yeah.
And what you have to just manage with that, right? Yeah, that's really important. I agree with that, 100%.
So, before we conclude everything, I'd like
Sure.
each of us to maybe make one or two statements just to clarify our stance on this bipolar talent. So
Right.
is that possible? Maybe you would like to start first, like one or two statements, just kind of summarizing what you want to say to.
Well, we just said, right, like, yeah, sure. Like I said, I'm a lucky person in a way because being, there are tons of different cases being a bipolar patient. So not single one is the same, I guess. Everyone has different, reaction to the medication, different state, different manic or depressive, fluctuations. So you have to really watch out and you have to really know who you are. I think that's really important. So because being, bipolar, meaning too extreme, right? It could be manic and depressive. in different cases. So you have to really know what makes you different and what changes you. So, I guess number one, you have to be on medication. Number two, like I said, you have to know who you are, and you try to have to, really look deep inside of yourself. And so that you have to analyze yourself, and you have to find out who you are first. So after being on medication and after finding out who you are, and like, Dawit and I, you have to know what you're good at and what your talent is and what you really want to do and what you're looking for in your life. So, step by step, being on medication, and do know who you are. And third, like how you want to lead your life and what you want to be and how you want to be. And that's really the most important thing. So, all those 3 steps, 1 to 3, I think, if you try to follow what you want to do and what you are good at and what your strong point is, I think that would be a big start as how you want to change your life and how you want to be better at what you do. So I guess, being bipolar patient, everyone is different. But like I said, the most important part is that 1 to 3 step in my case. And I hope that other people who are, suffering from, bipolar disorder could actually, know and follow and like find out about themselves and who they are and what they want to become. So you have to be positive and be more confident, I would say.
I see. Yeah, thank you for that very uplifting and encouraging message. I would like to keep it as simple as possible. I think bipolar disorder can definitely make you stable, but that's only if you're bipolar disorder can make you more talented, but that's only if you're stable and you take care of yourself.
Right.
Keep fluctuating from mania and depression, your brain will get more damaged, and it'll just make you much less talented than you were or you were before or anything like that. So yeah, just make sure you're taking care of your health and try to maintain that stability, and soon enough in that stability you'll flourish in creativity and other ways as well. So yeah, that will be the wrap up for today's session. I hope you guys enjoyed it, so please tune in into our next episodes as well. I hope you guys can subscribe and like as well. And thank you for joining us. Yes, and we will see you next time. 오늘은 여기까지.
Thank you, everyone.